Thunder Bay City Council discusses the local impact of potential U.S. tariffs. Good evening and thank you for joining us. At last night's meeting, City Council voted unanimously to work with the federal and provincial governments to deal with the tariff threats from the United States. This comes after a report received by the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee shows that Thunder Bay is among the most vulnerable cities in Ontario. Jessica Clement reports.
The looming tariff threat from the United States was the main topic of discussion at Monday night's council meeting, as Councillor Kristen Oliver brought forward a memorandum recommending that the city support all efforts by the federal and provincial governments to manage the threat of a trade war.
I think our community has been very loud and clear through coffee shops, arenas, the grocery stores. This is a huge concern, and they're looking to council to be in support with the province and the federal government to fight the good fight and to protect our economy.
This comes after a report received by the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee that identified Thunder Bay as the third most vulnerable city in the province to tariff impacts. Oliver, who also chairs the committee, says in a worst-case scenario, up to 7,000 local jobs could be impacted.
When you look at the fact that softwood lumber is a huge contributor to the economic backbone of our city and the region, we look at steel, we look at other products that we have that are going across the border. We know that there's, it could be upwards 7,000 people could be losing their jobs, and that's a huge hit for a community of 110,000 people.
Mayor Ken Boshkoff also chimed in, stating that Ontario's big city mayors are taking the stance to keep an open dialogue with the American border mayors.
Our communities understand trade and reciprocity and cross-border cooperation. I think we're blessed with that knowledge and the fact that we share strong relationships with our American neighbors. This resolution is timely and in order, and I'm hoping that it'll have contribute to the desired effect of letting the good people on both sides of the border come together in common cause.
Council voted unanimously in support of the amendment. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
A pair of major projects in Thunder Bay are getting a funding boost from the Community Economic Development Commission. The CEDC board has approved $500,000 to support the new Thunder Bay Art Gallery at the waterfront and the same amount for the planned indoor turf facility. The funding comes from the city's Tourism Development Fund using proceeds from the municipal accommodation tax. The most recent cost estimate for the new art gallery was $57 million, but that price tag could rise even further. Meanwhile, the contract for the indoor turf facility could be awarded this spring with an estimated cost of $42 million. The manager of Tourism Thunder Bay says both projects will help the city expand and diversify the local tourism economy.
Our contribution to the art gallery recognizes that it is a cultural attraction in the community, and that certainly helps towards their fundraising goal. With respect to the indoor turf facility, we met 2 years ago with all of the user groups and all the partners in that, and we got a sense and we got a list of all of the regional and provincial events that they were planning to attract with this venue, and we ran economic impact models on every single one of those events, and from that we came up with an economic, an anticipated tourism impact of between $400,000 and $600,000 a year.
The $500,000 for each project will be released gradually over the next 2 years. Voter turnout in the city's 2 ridings has been solid ahead of Election Day as thousands of area voters cast their ballots in the advance polls last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. During the 3 days, Thunder Bay Superior North saw just under 3,400 people take advantage of the advance voting, or about 6.2% of registered voters. In Thunder Bay Atikokan, just over 2,800 voters turned out, or 4.6%. Superior North Returning Officer Julio Gomes says he can't really compare the turnout numbers to previous elections as there were more advance polling stations open and more days to vote, but he's pleased by how many people have come out so far.
People seem to have an interest, and they're willing to come out, and voting will continue at the returning offices until Wednesday. Then Thursday it's polling day, and people have to go to the designated voting location, which is listed on their voter information card.
And those voting locations for this Thursday can also be found on the Elections Ontario website. Well, voting day, as mentioned, is Thursday here in Ontario, just a couple of days away, and it's a race to the finish line on the campaign trail. Here's CTV's Siobhan Morris with the latest.
With the campaign finish line in sight, Doug Ford returned to the figure at the center of his election attack, Donald Trump.
His tariffs are coming on time and on schedule.
Contemplating new ways to hit the U.S. back if tariffs are levied next week.
We're reviewing the cost of electricity we're sending down there. And if he puts tariffs on anything in Canada or Ontario, they're getting a tariff on their electricity.
It's not clear how this fits with Ford's previous promise to cut off power to U.S. states. He's also said the LCBO would clear American-made booze off its shelves. Ford has asked for a strong mandate to outlast Trump, but would a potentially low turnout in a rare winter vote be strong enough?
Absolutely. We have a democratic process here, and the people should go out there and vote.
If you want to cut taxes.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie in Toronto spreading her message at a few Scarborough eateries and closer to downtown.
I'm asking everyone who may have voted for another party in the past, maybe in a previous election, to come together to defeat this government.
An expansion of her ask for NDP voters to lean Liberal.
This is a tired old game that the Liberals play election after election.
NDP leader Marit Stiles campaigning in parts of southwestern Ontario her party already holds.
The Liberals want people to settle. But New Democrats, we know we can change things. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it with the power of your vote. Your vote matters.
Green leader Mike Schreiner spent a second day in cottage country trying to flip a PC seat.
You have a historic opportunity to send a message to Doug Ford and the Conservative Party that you cannot take rural Ontario for granted.
Everybody say Bonnie!
After insisting she was staying out of the federal Liberal leadership race, Bonnie Crombie announced she's backing Mark Carney.
He's a leader that can stand up to Donald Trump and speak with some authority and experience on tariffs.
The Ontario Liberals are thought to have been buoyed by better polling numbers for the federal party under Carney's potential guidance. And Crombie swears she isn't worried about that link cutting both ways, with someone Conservatives have branded
Carbon tax Carney.
We do not support the carbon tax.
Promising not to make consumers pay for pollution.
That was CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. Highway 11 between Longlac and Hearst was closed for about 6 hours early this morning due to hazardous winter weather conditions and a number of transports losing control. The highway shutdown was announced by Ontario 511 around 3 a.m. This dash cam video recorded later in the morning shows the aftermath as multiple transport trucks could be seen in the ditch. Along the stretch, the issue of Northern Highway safety has been raised along the local campaign trail. Candidates in Thunder Bay Atikokan recently responded to questions about how to make the highways safer.
So I got to work for Michael. He was big on twinning Thunder Bay to Nipigon. I want to focus on twinning Thunder Bay to Chappaqua because we need to get those plans in place now because it takes a little bit of time to get those highways built. So I think twinning all of 11, 17 where it's combined and also working on 11 and 17 when they're separated as well. It's also working with the federal government to make sure that people on our roads are driving at the safest and highest standards.
One thing that we hear time and again, and we need infrastructure, of course, but we also need that the drivers be properly trained for the road conditions in our area. And right now, the same companies that are training people are giving them their licenses. And there's very little regulation, and none really. There should be oversight by the MTO, but there is very little or none.
Over the last 2.5 years, I've had the opportunity to speak with MTO, the OPP, on the incidence of the accidents that we're seeing on the highway, particularly around commercial truck vehicles. So these are all areas that we're addressing. We've seen a reduction in the number of accidents over, 10-year average. We've seen a slight spike recently, but we're taking the measures that we to look into it, to see what the root cause is, so that we can put together a good, solid plan to address it.
A Thunder Bay man has been charged for child pornography and luring for the second time in less than 2 years. 32-year-old William Heydrich faces 14 charges in all, including accessing child pornography, luring a child, and 4 counts of distributing intimate images without consent. Thunder Bay Police seized several electronic devices back in December, and Heydrich was arrested yesterday. He was also charged for similar luring offenses in 2023, but pleaded guilty only to possessing anime child porn last May. Heydrich was sentenced to 12 months in custody at that time. These latest charges haven't been tested in court. Members of Grassy Narrows First Nation held a vigil outside Queen's Park in Toronto today for those who've died due to the ongoing mercury poisoning in the Wabigoon River. CTV's John Musselman was there.
More than 80 people gathered outside Queen's Park today for a vigil in memory of those who have died as a result of mercury-related poisoning at the Grassy Narrows First Nation in northwestern Ontario. Experts estimate more than 9 tons of mercury was dumped into the river back in the 1960s. 90% of the community experienced symptoms, including Judy De Silva.
Well, the mercury that's in the sediment is, we get poisoned by eating the fish. And it's a neurological toxin. So it affects, it's affecting me. And I feel myself deteriorating each day, and I'm 63 years old.
Grassy Narrows Chief Sherry Ackaby says residents are in a sustained state of crisis.
We all witness everything that happens. And, it would be nice if they could actually see for themselves what they're doing. And I believe it has to stop because our children are very important. Our people are important. Everybody's important.
Demonstrators are calling on the provincial government to fully compensate all residents of the Grassy Narrows First Nation.
We are not tragic victims. Indigenous people are the original stewards of this land. They are the current stewards of this land.
Premier Doug Ford was invited to today's vigil. The Premier was instead campaigning in Ottawa in the lead up to the election on Thursday. John Musselman, CTV News.
Carrick Street between 11th Avenue and Hewitson, including next to the Superstore, is closed to all traffic at this time due to flooding and frozen culverts. City crews are working to improve drainage in the area, but it's still unknown how long the road will be closed. The nearby Harbour Expressway remains open, but motorists are advised to drive with caution. Well, officials at Roots Community Food Centre dealt with a water main repair right in front of their facility today. The rupture along Fort William Road flooded the neighborhood on Sunday morning, including the Roots building. City crews are having a hard time finding the source of the leak. A jackhammer and excavator tore up the asphalt at the Roots entranceway this morning before digging a hole around the water main. Yesterday, sewer and water crews tore up the road a bit further south near First Avenue, but were unable to locate the rupture. Well, that hole has been filled back in. The second location in front of Roots was a concern to Executive Director Erin Beagle. She says fortunately they've cleaned up the floodwater inside, and today was not a meal day. But tomorrow evening, they're expecting up to 150 people for their regular Wednesday meal for seniors and elders.
Initially, we were told that they were going to maybe have to cut down some trees, and that doesn't look like that's happening anymore. So we're actually quite relieved about that because the trees have a huge value to this building and our city, I think. So right now our entrance is being dug up. They're still looking for the source of the leak, is what we've been told. They haven't been able to find that yet. And our driveway might be right where they're looking. So it's disruptive for sure.
And we do now know that the Roots entrance was not the source of the leak, and city crews are now digging up a third location closer to First Avenue. Beagle says Roots is giving $50 fresh food gift cards to their neighbors along First Avenue and Ontario streets whose homes were flooded on Sunday. High school drama students at Westgate are presenting their own rendition of Freaky Friday, the musical, this week. The comedic show explores a mother and daughter's body-swapping adventure. The play was presented to elementary students this morning. The young audience seemed to enjoy all the chaos that ensues when an overworked mother and her teenage daughter magically swap bodies for a day. The production features a big cast of 40 students, and the story delves into themes of self-discovery, family bonds, and friendship. Grade 10 student Hayden Chupsick stars as the daughter, Ellie Blake. She thinks audiences who appreciate stories about the complexities of relationships will enjoy this show.
The cast has put so much work into it in such a short amount of time. We've been doing this since November, and now it's February. It came so quick, especially with Miss Nadine also directing Charlie Brown for our Christmas play. I'm impressed with all my castmates since a lot of them don't have theater experience, and we've all put in a lot of work and it's come together amazingly.
It takes a whole village to make something like this come together. The students have been just so incredibly resilient. They're so vibrant on stage, and we're so excited to continue to see them shine up there. The show is also in support of Pro Kids, so we're very excited to have them on board with us and to make sure that they profit from this incredible journey with us.
Freaky Friday, the musical, runs from tonight until Friday evening. Shows start at 7 p.m. Tickets can be purchased online or at the door. All right, well, turning our attention to the weather now, and Haley, it's been a bit of a roller coaster recently. We've seen temperatures a few degrees above freezing. We've sunk back below the freezing mark. We got to freezing today, and we see some of the impact that can have with the flooding and freezing.
Absolutely. It's not even Friday and it's already feeling a little freaky out there.
Yeah, it is.
Because, temperatures have been causing some unfortunate circumstances around the city, as we've seen, and that's because they are above seasonal consistently. So we were at the freezing mark as our high today. That was around 4 and 5 p.m. But even overnight, our low was well above seasonal. We only got to -3, and really we didn't even reach that until what I would consider more the earlier hours of the morning. So around 8 in the morning. We saw some light snow in the morning as well. Even around that 8 o'clock hour, it was light freezing drizzle. So with those temperatures just hovering around the freezing mark, that's when you see that shift in precipitation between light snow, freezing drizzle, and it makes that big mess where things are both thawing and once again we're seeing the mess of a little bit of snow. So it was a little messy out there today. Most people had to clear off a layer on top of their cars, but after this morning things cleared out a little bit. We can take a look at that system. As I mentioned, it was early in the morning that we saw it around the Thunder Bay area, but little periodic light pockets of precipitation did pop up throughout the day, clearing in the afternoon and now in our evening hours. Right now in the region, most areas aren't seeing any active precipitation. We see that areas to the west did get above the freezing mark. We saw 1 degree in Red Lake and Kenora. That was their high for the day. Mostly cloudy for the most part, but a little bit of morning precipitation in areas like Red Lake as well, light flurries. Fort Frances, one of the warmer areas, they saw a high of 3, which they're currently at right now, and they have more clear skies. Most areas saw very light variable winds today, so fluctuating predominantly from the south in areas to the west, a little more to the east in areas that are more central. And then we see a string of areas to the east that are a little bit colder today. So it was -6 for quite a while as the high in Pickle Lake. They've now gotten to -5, but you still see -6 in Armstrong, Greenstone, Marathon, down in Wawa as well. These are all areas that could have seen precipitation through more consistent periods. A great example of that is Greenstone. They saw light snow throughout the day. Their overnight low was -13. Felt like -20 with the wind chill. So that's why to the east you could see more conflicting road conditions for travel as well, because those bits of snow and slush and icy conditions could stick around longer with these colder temperatures. Now, areas like Wawa didn't see a ton of fluctuation throughout the day, just ranging from -7 to -4, now back down to -6. And Sault Ste. Marie's at -2, but they were hovering close to the freezing mark for most of the day. Now for Thunder Bay tonight, we'll have another night that's quite mild. We're looking at a low of -6 with a wind chill of just -8, partly cloudy. And once again, those winds are very variable. It's hard to say what direction they'll come from as they will be so light. And as we'll see later on in our newscast, it's expected that most areas in the nation today were actually above seasonal. So that's just the trend right now, and it could continue for the next few days.
Okay, thanks a lot, Haley.
You're welcome.
Well, when we return, it's round 2 tonight for the Liberal leadership candidates. They will debate tonight in English, this after a French debate yesterday. We'll have the details when we return.
They're trying to make sure that they don't sow too much division within the party because they need to emerge from this united.